The loner rancher waited for his mail-order bride, and a woman twice his size stepped off the wagon. The twin suns of New Terra burned hot in the clear blue sky. Dust swirled lazily across the wide plains, creating tiny tornadoes that danced over the golden grass. At the edge of this sprawling land, Jeb Marlowe stood with his hat pulled low, shielding his eyes from the sunlight. His boots sank into the soft, powdery soil as he adjusted the straps of his worn leather satchel. Today was the day he had been waiting for. He squinted at the horizon, where a small wagon trundled along the dirt path. The wheels kicked up clouds of dust, and the faint hum of a hovering support engine made the wagon appear more like a floating carriage than a vehicle. Jeb's heart thumped in a mix of nerves and excitement. He had sent for a mail-order bride. Not just any woman. Someone to share the quiet nights, the endless work, and maybe, just maybe, a bit of warmth in his solitary life. He imagined her already. Petite, gentle, with soft hands that could tend to the hover horses and prepare meals without making a mess. Maybe she would laugh at his jokes, even the bad ones. Maybe she would like the little cabin he had built by the ridge, with a view over the plains where the twin suns set in perfect harmony. The wagon slowed. Jeb straightened, brushing the dust from his coat. He could see the figure inside, and his mind raced through all the polite greetings he had practiced. He even rehearsed his smile, a small, confident grin that said, "I am capable, kind, and interesting." The doors of the wagon creaked open, and then the world seemed to shift. Standing there was not the delicate woman Jeb had imagined. No, standing in the wagon doorway was Magnolia Ironstride. She was large, strong, and confident, easily twice Jeb's size. Her shoulders were broad, her stance steady, and she wore a mechanized exosuit that hissed quietly as it powered down. The suit looked like something a starship engineer or a space miner would wear, with glowing circuits running along its arms and legs. Her hair was a wild tangle of red curls, and her eyes sparkled with mischief. For a long moment, Jeb simply stared. His mouth opened, closed, and opened again, but no words came out. "Well?" she asked, tilting her head. "You look like a man who can talk." Hello, he said finally. "I'm Jeb Marlowe." "You must be Mags?" "That's me," she said with a grin that seemed to fill the entire wagon. "But you can call me Magnolia. Or Mags. Or if you like, Big Red." She winked, and the mechanical joints of her suit made a soft squeak as she leaned slightly forward. Jeb swallowed hard. He had expected someone small, quiet, maybe nervous, but Mags, she was a force of nature. He realized quickly that he could not imagine her failing at anything. Not lifting crates, not repairing engines, not even calming a stampede of hover horses. "Well," Jeb said, forcing a smile, "you've certainly arrived." Mags laughed, a deep, hearty sound that made the dust swirl around them like it had its own rhythm. "I get that a lot. Come on, show me the ranch. I've traveled light years, and I'm curious to see what a loner lives like out here." Jeb blinked, then nodded. He motioned for her to step down. She did, carefully, though even her careful steps made the ground tremble slightly. The exosuit hissed again as it adjusted her weight. Jeb's boots felt tiny compared to hers. For a brief moment, he wondered if the whole universe had conspired to play a joke on him. Right this way," he said, motioning toward the ranch. The small homestead lay a short walk from the path. A wooden cabin with solar panels, a stable for his hover horses, and a fenced yard with strange alien plants he had grown over the years. He pointed to the hovering animals. "These are my hover horses. Don't worry, they're friendly. Mostly." Mags crouched slightly to get a closer look, her hands hovering over the animals without touching them. The hover horses tilted their heads, curious. Nice. Very obedient. She straightened and gave Jeb a sharp look. "They sense fear, or excitement. Or boredom." "Boredom? Really?" "Absolutely. Animals pick up on energy. They know when someone doesn't have it together." Her eyes scanned him quickly. "Don't worry, you passed the test so far." They entered the cabin. Jeb had cleaned for hours in preparation, scrubbing dust from every corner and organizing his tools. He opened a kitchen cupboard to reveal tins of preserved food, packets of spices, and a few odd items from off-world markets. Mags picked up a strange green fruit. "Never seen one like this," she said, sniffing it. "You eat it raw or cooked?" "Cooked." "Usually," Jeb said. "But you're welcome to try it." Mags grinned, tossing the fruit into the air and catching it with one hand. "I like a challenge." "Cooking is more fun when you experiment." Jeb chuckled nervously. He realized quickly that Mags was the opposite of what he had expected. She was bold, funny, and fearless. She didn't shrink in the face of the plains, the animals, or the harsh suns. She laughed at his careful routines and even pointed out ways he could improve the stable and the watering systems. By mid-afternoon, Jeb was beginning to feel a strange mix of admiration and intimidation. Mags was not just large in size, she was large in presence. And yet she moved with grace, adjusting the hover horse's harnesses, checking the solar panels, and even helping him fix a broken fence post. "You know," she said, wiping her hands on a rag, "I don't mind working hard. It's honest, and it's better than floating aimlessly in a starliner doing paperwork." Jeb nodded. He realized she was not just strong and capable, she had a sense of purpose. He felt a strange warmth, a spark of hope that maybe, just maybe, his lonely ranch life could be different. As the suns began to set, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Mag stood outside, her exosuit casting long, soft shadows across the cabin. She watched the horizon quietly, and Jeb noticed a small, almost imperceptible smile on her lips. "You like it here?" he asked softly. "I do," she said after a pause. "It's quiet, open, full of possibilities, and I like possibilities." Jeb nodded again. He felt his heart lighten. For years he had imagined a life with someone small, someone quiet, someone manageable. But standing there, watching Mags laugh as a hover horse nudged her hand, he realized that what he imagined was not what he needed. What he needed, what he didn't even know he was missing, was someone real, bold, full of life, someone who could match him in ways he hadn't thought possible. Just then a soft beep came from the device strapped to Mag's exosuit. She glanced down at it, her expression turning thoughtful. "Ah," she said. "Looks like the universe isn't done surprising us yet." Jeb raised an eyebrow. "The universe?" She smiled mysteriously. "Oh, yes. It has a way of keeping life interesting." Jeb laughed softly, feeling a strange thrill. He had expected calm, quiet companionship. What he got was a woman who could probably lift him with one hand and who had secrets he didn't yet understand. And somehow, for the first time in years, he didn't mind. As night fell over the plains, the twin moons of New Terra rose, casting silvery light across the ranch. The hover horses snorted and shifted in their pens. Mags adjusted a few panels on her exosuit and then sat on the porch, looking at the stars with a mixture of awe and amusement. Jeb joined her, keeping a respectful distance at first. They didn't speak for long, but it didn't feel awkward. The silence was full, comfortable. For the first time, Jeb realized that maybe, just maybe, the lonely life he had known could become something else entirely. And somewhere deep in the plains, hidden in the shadows, something moved. Small, nimble, and curious. Jeb didn't see it, but Mags did. She gave a tiny, knowing smile. "This is going to be fun," she whispered. The next morning, the twin suns of New Terra rose slowly over the plains, spilling soft golden light across the ranch. Jeb Marlowe rubbed his eyes, still not quite used to the idea that Magnolia Mags Ironstride, the woman who had practically burst into his life yesterday, was now his neighbor, partner, and mystery wrapped in an exosuit. He stretched his arms and yawned, thinking about breakfast. Mags was already outside, crouched by the hover horses, inspecting their harnesses. The mechanical joints of her exosuit hissed quietly as she moved. She hummed a tune that sounded like an old Earth country song mixed with some strange alien notes. Jeb watched her from the porch, still unsure if he should call out or just enjoy the sight. "Morning," he finally said, his voice carrying across the small yard. "Morning," Mags replied without turning. She nudged a hover horse gently with her palm. These guys are happier than I thought, but some of them smell funny. Jeb chuckled nervously. "They're new breeds. Still getting used to the food." Mags stood, brushing dust off her suit. "Well, we'll fix that. I have ideas." Jeb hesitated. She said, "we," not "I" or "you," not small talk. Somehow, even the words she used made him feel included, like he was already part of her plan. Breakfast was a mix of preserved fruits, toasted bread, and coffee that Jeb brewed in his old clunky machine. Mags was fascinated by the process. She poked at the toaster, examined the coffee maker, and even tinkered with the spice rack. "Ever tried adding a bit of space-time?" she asked, sprinkling a faintly glowing powder into the mix. Jeb watched nervously as his breakfast began to glow slightly. Sure, why not? The first bite was surprisingly good. Jeb blinked, tasting something sweet, earthy, and strangely warm. Mags grinned. See? The right mix makes life better, even on a dusty planet. After breakfast, they moved outside to check the fields. Jeb had been expecting a quiet day, clean pens, feed the animals, maybe repair a fence, but Mags had other ideas. Your irrigation system is inefficient, she said, bending over a panel. Sparks flew briefly as she pressed some buttons. The sprinklers whirred to life, spraying water evenly across the crops. And these plants like more sun. I can adjust the shades. Jeb blinked. I didn't even know they had sensors. Everything has sensors, she said with a shrug. Even your boots, if you wanted. By mid-morning, the hover horses were prancing happily, the crops were well-watered, and the barn doors glimmered with a polish Jeb didn't remember applying. He had to admit, Mag's presence was more helpful than he could have imagined. But then, just as the suns reached their peak, something strange happened. Jeb noticed one of the smaller hover horses was missing. He blinked. Maybe it had wandered? He called out softly, but no sound came from the usual spots. Mags, he said, a trace of worry in his voice. Did you see lightning? Mags paused, looking up from a crate she was examining. Lightning? The little white one? Yes, he's gone. Mag's eyes narrowed slightly. That's not good. They usually don't wander. And there are no tracks leading off the ranch. She tilted her head, scanning the ground. We may have a problem. Jeb felt a cold shiver. A problem? On the plains? He had expected dust storms, maybe a rogue sand lizard, but this was different. I'll check the area, he said, pulling on his hat. No, Mags said firmly. We'll check it together, and bring your scanner. They climbed into the small hover truck, which hummed softly as they drove along the fence line. Jeb fiddled with his scanner, which beeped intermittently, picking up traces of something unusual in the dust. The readings were faint, but unmistakable. What is it? He asked, leaning close to Mags. Something small. Fast, clever, she said, her eyes scanning the plains. Not a predator, at least not a natural one. These tracks are artificial. Artificial? Jeb echoed. Yes, she said. She knelt and examined the faint neon traces on the ground. I've seen this kind of technology before. Droids. Tiny ones. Probably here to steal something. Jeb's stomach sank. Steal my hover horses? Mags nodded. Or their parts. Someone out there has plans, and we're in the way. For the first time, Jeb felt the weight of the frontier. He had imagined loneliness. He had imagined work. He had imagined quiet evenings under the twin moons. But he hadn't imagined this, a clever, invisible threat lurking in the plains. Mags tapped her chin thoughtfully. We need to find them before they take more. Jeb swallowed. And how do we do that? Mags smiled. We follow the tracks. Simple as that. They moved carefully, following the faint neon trails through the tall grass. The tracks twisted and turned, leading them toward a nearby canyon. The hover horse's disappearance felt more urgent with every step. Jeb kept glancing at Mags, half in awe, half in disbelief. She was fearless, determined, and calm, despite the unknown danger. As they reached the canyon, Mags crouched and scanned the ground with a small handheld device. They're here, she whispered. And judging by the tracks, there's more than one. How many? Too many to fight, she said firmly. But we don't need to fight. We just need to be clever. Clever? Mags grinned. I have an idea. She tapped a few buttons on her exosuit, which glowed faintly. We'll set a trap, make them think they're in control, then we'll outsmart them. Jeb nodded slowly, still trying to absorb the fact that his mail-order bride, his imagined gentle companion, was now a strategist, tracker, and inventor all at once. Hours passed as they set up small devices along the canyon path. Mags explained each step, showing Jeb how the sensors would detect movement and trigger harmless but effective barriers. Nothing dangerous, she said. We're smart, not violent. By late afternoon, everything was ready. They waited quietly in the brush, the twin suns low in the sky. The wind whispered across the canyon walls, carrying the faint sound of mechanical scuttling. Then, tiny droids appeared, sleek, metallic, with glowing neon eyes. They moved quickly, trying to grab small hover horse parts left out as bait. Mags signaled to Jeb. With a flick of her wrist, the sensors activated. Small barriers rose, trapping the droids in harmless loops. They beeped and clicked, frustrated but unable to escape. Jeb stared in amazement. That, of course it did. It's about thinking ahead. Not strength, not size. Brains win the day. For the first time, Jeb truly saw her, not just as a towering figure, not just as his unexpected mail-order bride, but as a partner. Someone who could face the unknown and solve problems with wit and courage. As the droids beeped and twirled in their harmless cages, Jeb felt a strange pride. The hover horses were safe, the ranch was secure, and Mags had turned what could have been a disaster into an adventure. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the canyon walls with deep oranges and purples. Mags adjusted her exosuit, a satisfied smile on her face. "Not bad for a day's work," she said. Jeb laughed softly, shaking his head. "Not bad? That was incredible. It's what happens when you expect the unexpected. And, Jeb, the unexpected is usually fun." He looked at her, really looked at her, and realized something important. Life on the ranch was no longer just about work, loneliness, or routine. It was about adventure, surprises, and partnership. And with Mags around, he could face anything, even the mysterious droids, the hidden dangers, and the secrets that the plains of New Terra were sure to hold. As they walked back to the cabin, side by side, Jeb felt a strange sense of excitement. This was only the beginning. The ranch, the hover horses, the canyon, everything had changed with her arrival. And somewhere deep in the plains, more secrets waited, just beyond the horizon. Mags glanced at him and grinned. "Tomorrow," she said, "we explore those ruins I mentioned." Jeb swallowed, a mix of dread and excitement curling in his chest. "Ruins?" "Yes. Old, mysterious, and probably full of surprises," she said with a wink. "Life's too short to be boring, Jeb." And for the first time in years, he didn't want boring. The morning sun of New Terra rose lazily over the plains, brushing the horizon with gold and orange. The twin moons still lingered faintly in the sky, leaving a soft silver glow that added a strange magic to the land. Jeb Marlowe stretched and yawned, feeling a nervous excitement in his chest. Today he and Mags were going to explore the ruins she had mentioned the day before. Mags was already outside, adjusting her exosuit. Its panels glimmered faintly in the morning light. She waved at Jeb. "Ready?" she called. "As ready as I'll ever be," Jeb replied, trying to sound brave. In truth, he had no idea what to expect. The word ruins made his imagination run wild. Collapsed buildings, ancient technology, maybe even old robot sentries. He swallowed nervously, trying not to let his imagination get the better of him. They climbed into the hover truck, which hummed softly as it glided across the plains. Mags gave Jeb a map she had brought with her, marked with strange symbols and coordinates. "These ruins are old," she said, her eyes scanning the horizon. "Probably from the first settlers on New Terra. Some of the technology might still work, and if we're lucky, we'll find clues about what those settlers left behind." Jeb nodded, gripping the steering controls tightly. "And if we're not lucky?" Mags grinned, her red curls bouncing in the breeze. "And we have an adventure. Either way, it's going to be interesting." The journey was quiet at first, filled only with the soft hum of the hover truck and the distant sounds of the plains. Jeb kept stealing glances at Mags. She moved with purpose, checking instruments, tapping buttons, and occasionally pointing to something in the distance. He realized how much he relied on her presence. She was fearless, clever, and unafraid of the unknown. After nearly an hour, they arrived at the ruins. They lay at the edge of a canyon, half buried in dust and sand. The structures were strange, some made of gleaming metal, others of stone etched with alien symbols. The wind whispered through broken walls, carrying tiny dust particles that sparkled in the sunlight. "Wow," Jeb breathed. He had never seen anything like this. "It's beautiful and dangerous if we're not careful, but mostly beautiful." She crouched beside one of the metallic walls, brushing away dust to reveal glowing symbols. "This tells a story," she said. "These settlers were engineers, inventors, dreamers, and they left messages for those who came after." "Messages?" "Yes," Mag said. "They wanted people to continue their work. But only if they were clever enough to understand it." She looked at him, her eyes twinkling. "That's us." Jeb chuckled nervously. "Us? You and me. We make a good team." They began to explore, carefully stepping over broken beams and shifting panels. Some doors were sealed, others collapsed. But Mags had tools and sensors, and soon they discovered a small chamber, surprisingly intact. Inside, the walls glowed faintly with blue light, and strange machinery hummed softly. "This is incredible," Jeb whispered. He ran his hand over a smooth panel. "Do you think it still works?" Mags tapped the panel with her gloved fingers. "It might. These settlers built things to last, but we have to be smart. One wrong move and the systems could reset or, well, shut down completely." As they examined the machinery, Jeb noticed a small console with a blinking light. He stepped closer. "What's this?" Mags motioned for him to step back. "Careful. That's probably a control panel. It could activate something or record something." She tapped a few keys on her own device. The console lit up, displaying symbols that neither of them had seen before. "They left a puzzle," Mags said. "We need to solve it to learn what they wanted to tell us." Jeb frowned, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. "A puzzle? I'm not sure I'm the puzzle-solving type." Mags laughed softly. "Don't worry, I've got you. And besides, the best solutions often come from teamwork. You think in ways I don't." We balance each other. For the next hour, they worked together, deciphering symbols, pressing buttons, and carefully following the sequences the console displayed. Slowly, the machine whirred to life, and a holographic map appeared in the air above it. It showed the plains around them, marking hidden locations with glowing dots. "Looks like a treasure map," Jeb said, eyes wide. "Not treasure," Mags corrected him, her voice serious. "Knowledge. Technology. Clues about how the settlers lived and how we can improve life here. Some of this could make the ranch run almost by itself." Jeb's eyes lit up. That could be amazing. But then a sound stopped him. A soft scuttling echoed through the chamber. He froze, listening. "Did you hear that?" he whispered. Mag's eyes narrowed. "Yes. And it's the same as yesterday. The droids." Jeb swallowed. "More of them? Probably they've been following us. They don't want anyone tampering with these ruins?" He had never been so close to danger before. Not real danger, just clever, hidden obstacles. And yet, seeing Mag's calm confidence made him feel ready. "We need a plan," she said. "But it has to be smart. Nothing forceful, nothing dangerous. Just clever. And what's the plan? We lure them into the chamber, then we use the machinery against them. Don't worry, they won't be harmed. Just delayed." Jeb wasn't sure how that worked, but he trusted her. Together they positioned small devices around the entrances. Each device would emit a harmless but very distracting energy pulse when triggered. As expected, the droids appeared a few minutes later. They were tiny, fast, and gleaming in the dim light. They darted toward the glowing dots on the floor, curious and determined. But as soon as they crossed the threshold, the devices activated. Bright pulses of light and soft mechanical vibrations surrounded them. The droids spun in confusion, trying to follow the map, but every path seemed to shift. Jeb watched in amazement. "It's working." Mags grinned. "I told you. Brains win the day." Together they guided the droids out of the chamber, making sure they were trapped in harmless loops until they eventually moved back into the plains, confused but unharmed. Jeb realized as he watched Mags work that cleverness could be more powerful than size or strength. And, more than that, he realized that he and Mags made a surprisingly effective team. After the droids were gone, the chamber fell silent. The machinery hummed gently, as if acknowledging their success. The holographic map floated above, showing even more locations, hidden caves, old communication towers, and storage facilities buried in the plains. "This is incredible," Jeb whispered. "We could learn so much from this." Mags nodded. "We will, but we take it one step at a time. The settlers left these clues for a reason. We don't rush. We understand. And we adapt." He had never been part of something so important, and he realized that life on the ranch was no longer just about survival or routine. With Mags by his side, every day could hold discovery, adventure, and partnership. As they left the ruins, Jeb glanced at her. "You're amazing, you know that?" Mags laughed softly, the sound warm and bright. "You're not so bad yourself. And remember, we make a team. That's what matters." They returned to the ranch as the twin suns began to set, painting the sky with brilliant shades of red and gold. The hover horses pranced in their pens, sensing the calm after a day of excitement. Jeb realized that the ranch, the plains, and even the distant ruins held endless possibilities. And for the first time, he felt ready. Not just for the challenges, but for life itself, with Mags by his side. That night, as they sat on the porch under the twin moons, Mags tapped her fingers on the exosuit. "Tomorrow," she said, "we explore another marker on the map. Who knows what we'll find?" Jeb smiled, feeling a thrill in his chest. "I can't wait. And I don't feel scared anymore." Mags looked at him, her green eyes sparkling. "Good. Use it wisely. And remember, the unexpected makes life interesting." Jeb nodded, feeling the truth in her words. Life on the ranch was no longer just about quiet days and lonely nights. It was about adventure, discovery, and partnership. And together, he and Mags could face anything, even the secrets hidden in the plains of New Terra. The next morning, the plains of New Terra glowed under the twin suns. The golden light stretched across the horizon, touching every blade of grass, every hovering fence post, and the small cabin that Jeb Marlowe now shared with Magnolia Mags Ironstride. Jeb was already awake, watching as Mags adjusted her exosuit and prepared the hover truck for another adventure. Yesterday's discoveries in the ruins had changed everything. He had realized that life on the ranch could be more than just tending hover horses or maintaining the crops. There were mysteries waiting to be solved, technologies to uncover, and a partner by his side who made the impossible seem simple. "Ready?" Mags called, her voice carrying across the yard. "As I'll ever be," Jeb replied, gripping his hat nervously. But this time, he felt excitement instead of fear. Their mission today was simple. Follow the next marker on the holographic map from the ruins. It was rumored to be a storage facility left behind by the first settlers, filled with tools, knowledge, and supplies that could make life on the ranch easier and more productive. As they drove across the plains, Jeb stole glances at Mags. She was focused, adjusting sensors, scanning the terrain, and occasionally laughing softly at something only she seemed to notice. Her presence was magnetic, and Jeb realized how much he had come to rely on her judgment, her courage, and her cleverness. After nearly an hour, they reached the location, a small valley hidden between two ridges. The valley was surrounded by jagged rocks, but at its center stood a metallic structure, partially buried in sand and dust. It looked almost like a spaceship, but much smaller and covered with strange markings that glowed faintly under the sun. "Wow," Jeb whispered, stepping out of the hover truck. This is incredible." Mags crouched to examine the entrance. "It's intact. Mostly. Some systems might still work. And judging by the sensors, there's no one else here." She looked at Jeb and grinned. "Perfect. Let's see what secrets they left for us." Panels lined the walls and glowing symbols marked the floor and ceiling. Jeb ran his hand over one of the consoles, amazed at the intricate design. "Do you think it's safe?" Mags nodded. "Mostly. Just be careful where you step and what you touch. The settlers were clever, and they left systems that activate automatically, but none of it is dangerous, at least not if you pay attention." They began exploring, Mags tapping keys and pressing panels to unlock doors, while Jeb observed the strange symbols and glowing screens. Soon they discovered rows of storage units filled with supplies, tools, energy cells, and even small crates labeled with alien words that Mags translated using her device. "This is amazing," Jeb said. "We could improve the ranch with all this." Mags smiled. "Yes, but more importantly, look at this." She pointed to a small chamber at the back of the facility. Inside was a holographic archive showing the history of New Terra's first settlers. There were images of their work, their inventions, and notes on how they had survived in the harsh plains. Jeb's eyes widened. This is incredible. It's like they left a guidebook for anyone who came after." Mags nodded. "Exactly. And now we can use it wisely. We don't take everything at once. We learn, adapt, and improve." As they studied the archives, the soft hum of the facility suddenly changed. A low mechanical whir echoed through the halls. Jeb froze. "What is it?" he whispered. Mags tapped her exosuit. "The droids. They've followed us here. But don't worry. We can handle them. We just need to be clever." Sure enough, tiny metallic droids appeared at the edges of the room, their glowing eyes scanning for anything valuable. But instead of panicking, Mags gestured to Jeb. "Follow my lead. Remember yesterday? We can do this again." They quickly set up harmless devices around the droid's path. Soft pulses of light and gentle vibrations guided the droids away from the storage units and toward a small loop in the room. The droids darted, confused, trying to navigate the changing paths. Jeb watched in awe as Mags calmly directed everything, adjusting her exosuit and giving small instructions that Jeb followed perfectly. Within minutes, the droids were trapped harmlessly in the loop, unable to reach the archives or the supplies. Jeb breathed a sigh of relief. "You see? Mags said, smiling. Brains and patience win every time. I can't believe how clever you are, and I can't believe I get to work with you. Mags looked at him, her green eyes sparkling. And I can't believe I get to have an adventure on a ranch with someone like you. She laughed softly. Life's full of surprises, Jeb. You just have to be ready for them. After the droids were dealt with, they spent the rest of the day exploring the facility. They discovered more archives, energy cells to power the ranch, and even a small garden module that could grow alien vegetables. Jeb realized that everything they found could make their life easier, but also more exciting. By late afternoon, they left the facility, carrying only what they needed and making sure to leave the droids in harmless loops until they wandered back into the plains. The twin suns were low in the sky, painting the plains in warm shades of gold and orange. As they drove back to the ranch, Jeb felt a sense of calm and happiness he hadn't known in years. The adventures, the mysteries, and even the challenges had brought him closer to Mags. He realized that life on New Terra was no longer lonely. He had a partner, a friend, and someone who could make even the strangest days enjoyable. When they reached the ranch, the hover horses pranced in their pens, sensing the calm energy of their caretakers. Mags immediately began setting up some of the energy cells and tools they had retrieved, showing Jeb how to use them to improve the irrigation system in the stable. Jeb watched her work, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. You know, he said, I thought I wanted someone quiet, small, and simple. But what I really needed was you. Mags laughed, her red curls bouncing in the sunlight. I'm glad you realized that. And I'm glad I ended up here with you. Life's too short for boring or ordinary. That evening, they sat on the porch, the twin moons rising in the sky. The plains glowed under their light, and the ranch felt alive with possibility. The hover horses snorted softly, the wind whispered through the fields, and the distant ruins held more secrets waiting to be discovered. Jeb leaned back, looking at Mags. Do you think we'll ever be ready for everything out there? Mags smiled, her eyes reflecting the twin moons. We don't need to be ready for everything. We just need to be ready together. That's enough. He felt a warmth in his chest, a mix of excitement, gratitude, and love. For years he had imagined a quiet, lonely life on the plains. Now he had something better, a life full of adventure, surprises, and partnership. As the night deepened, they made plans for the days ahead. They would continue exploring the ruins, uncovering the secrets of New Terra, and using what they found to improve their ranch. Jeb realized that every day could hold discovery, every night could bring stories, and every challenge could be an adventure faced together. Before going inside, Mags looked out over the plains, her exosuit glowing faintly under the moonlight. You know, she said softly, the plains have a way of testing people. But they also have a way of rewarding those who are brave, clever, and willing to try. Then we'll face it together. And as they watched the distant horizon, a faint flicker of light in the ruins reminded them that the universe still held surprises, mysteries, and adventures waiting for those brave enough to find them. But for now, Jeb and Mags were content. They had the plains, the hover horses, the secrets of the settlers, and most importantly, each other. The night was calm, the stars glittered, and the ranch on New Terra felt like home. A home built not just on land or technology, but on trust, friendship, and the promise of adventure. Jeb realized, finally, that the life he had imagined, and even the life he hadn't, was exactly what he had found with Mags. And for the first time, he felt fully, completely, and wonderfully ready for everything the future might bring.